Well, good evening. My name is Jeremy, the songwriter, guitarist from Dunedin-based band Civil War Corpse. We're in the final stage, or late stages, of making a record, and a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think, we released the first track from the album. It's a song called The Enemy Within. And about a week ago, last weekend, I did a video talking about how the song came to be written. Specifically, essentially the basic chords and the lyrics. And so tonight, I thought I would talk about how the song came to be arranged and recorded the way that it has been. How it came to be the song that you can listen to if you haven't already. There will be a link in the description. I think that's the terminology, the nomenclature that YouTubers are supposed to use. There will be a link in the description. So basically, if you haven't watched the first video, but you are interested, I would suggest watch that and then watch this one, because I don't really want to go back over everything I said in the first one. So where I'm picking up tonight is the song has been written. So, when we, and by we I mean myself and the other people in Civil War Corpse, when we sat down and we were sitting down most of the time, I would occasionally stand up. When we sat down to start working out what to do with the song, there was a big question mark in my head. So the other guys had never heard it. It was a song that I'd written about 8 years ago, or 8 years prior. Yeah, 8 years ago. Sorry. And I really liked it, and I knew I liked it. And I played it lots on my own, in live context, just me on an acoustic guitar as it was written. And I really liked it, and I knew I wanted it to be on the record, but I didn't really have any idea of what that final form would take. So the guys came around one night and I played it to them. And the first thing they said was, "Man, that's really cool, but you gotta make it shorter." See, the original song had 6 verses, and the verses are quite long. There's no choruses, there's no bridge, there's a guitar solo. I mean, there is now. Originally there was just I guess you'd call it an instrumental. And I went, yeah, that's probably true. I probably do need to cut it down. It's kind of long. And I wasn't that excited about the idea of doing that, because, it's like the Chili Peppers say, no way, clown. Our lyrics are like our children, man. That may have even been the first thought that popped into my head. But then I sort of found myself thinking, you know what? Maybe this would be a good exercise. I mean, they're right, it is long. Not that I have a problem with that. I mean, my song's long. For me, 6 minutes is, well, that's just normal. But I started thinking, it is a long song. And it's, especially for the kind of song that it is, like, there's not a whole lot of ebb and flow, different movements, different parts. It's 6 verses, one after the other. Now, maybe if I was Bob Dylan, that would be okay, but I'm not. So I thought, righto. And so the short version is basically the song that was recorded has 4 verses. The first verse is the same as it originally was. The second verse, I think I changed 1 or 2 lines. And by changed, I mean I took them from other later parts of the song. Verses 3 and 4 are essentially the greatest hits of what was originally verses 3 through 6. And I'm really stoked. I'm really glad that I did it. It was a good idea. So we did that. Well, I did that. And then some months later, because I think I played it to them just before Christmas or something. And so it wasn't until the following year that we had another go at it. And immediately, my bass player Richard started doing this thump, 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 and Andrew's doing a thing on the drums, and I was like, whoa, okay. This is turning into, this could be some kind of like hillbilly barn dance stomping thing. I wasn't really sure how I felt about that. But what I was sure of was that it sounded cool. And I thought, you know what? Let's just run with that, you know? It sounds good. And whatever I'm going to do with that in terms of other guitar parts, well, that's a problem for next week, Jeremy. Right now, this works, so let's run with it. And so that's what we did. We recorded the drums and the bass, the main guitar part, a scratch vocal, which I have a feeling may be the actual vocal that's on the record. And we did piano on it as well. And then tomorrow Jeremy became today Jeremy, or at least the Jeremy of that today. And the Jeremy of that today had to work out what to do next. And so the way that I approached The Enemy Within, essentially the same way that I approach any other song, I just listen to it. And by what I mean by that is, I try to hear, let myself hear where the space in the song is. And not with a view to filling it, going, oh, there's a spot, let's fill it with something. But rather going, okay, where's the space? Not just in terms of like, you know, gaps, but from an EQ point of view. Okay, we've got a lot of bass happening here, and there's some mid stuff here. Is there maybe room for something kind of, you know, tweedly, or, you know, whatever? Or, you know, this part's really punchy and thick or something, you know, is there room for some elves and fairies kind of stuff, you know, that would provide some sort of counterbalance. So without, you know, belaboring it, I suppose I kind of approached the song, again, same way I do any other song in this context, the way I imagine a chef might approach a meal, or, you know, a writer might approach a story, you know, or a director or screenwriter might approach, you know, a movie. I've never been in any of these things, so I'm just, you know, making this up. But it's like you've got your main idea, you know, if it's a meal, maybe it's a steak. You know, that's the basic essence of the song, is the steak. And sometimes maybe that's all you want. But in this case, I knew that it was going to be more than a steak. And so it's a case of, well, what are we going to put around the steak? What are we going to do with the steak to augment it? You know, and my approach is always, how do I make the song more? Not more just as in let's add stuff. So that, you know, let's make the pie higher, as the great George Bush Jr. would say. But I guess, how can we reveal more of the song? Can I add some kind of little subplot, so to speak, or a counter melody? And usually, yeah. And what can I add to it that will help to take the listener on a journey? Because I figure a song should always take you somewhere, either musically or lyrically, or preferably both. And so in the earlier parts of a song, I'm always thinking, well, I might have something I'm working on. I go, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, okay, that's fine if I put it at this point in the song, but do I really want to do that all the way through? Or do I want to do it that early? I mean, where am I leaving myself to go? You know, am I leaving space for the song to climb, if you will? So I think originally what I first added was just sort of a picked guitar part, you know, sort of elves and fairies kind of stuff. Now the main guitar part, which is done on acoustic guitar, it's a capo on the 4th fret, and it goes. That's the main riff, if you will. And so, excuse me, something else that I often will consider when I'm adding to a song is, well, if the main guitar part does the capo's on the 4th fret, well, maybe the next layer, which might be just sort of, you know, some nice floaty chords, or sort of usually the second layer that I want to add to any song when I'm working it out is sort of a textural layer rather than a hook or a particularly obvious punchy kind of part. And so I can't actually remember what I did, but it's quite possible that I would have put the capo on the second fret and worked out some chords and to play there, simply because if you move, like if you use a capo and if you move it around within a song, the different guitar parts, it can add some really nice little textures and colors that won't be there if you don't use one at all, or if you do all the guitar parts with the capo on the same fret. That's a small thing, but I think it can be. It's something that's worth thinking about. As I say, I sort of worked out there's some points in the song probably want some nice big chords that will hang, and when we mix it, we'll sort of decide exactly how loud, how prominent they need to be, but it'll sort of add a bit of thickness to it without dominating the parts that I want to stand out. And then there was sort of some elves and fairy stuff. And then one night when I was actually when we were actually recording some of the parts, I found myself thinking, maybe it would be cool to have like a punchy sort of bar chord kind of thing. And so I think I kicked on a distortion pedal of some description, added a little bit of phaser, like just a tiny little bit. And I can't even remember the rhythm, but it was something kind of along these lines, like a... something like that. I think you hear it in the third verse. It's pretty subtle, but it's there, and it just adds a little point of difference. So the first verse is predominantly acoustic guitar. It's a little bit of electric guitar sort of in places. And then the second verse, it's like, obviously there's the bass, the drums, and the acoustic guitar, and there's more electric guitar. More of what was in the first verse, but it's, as I said, there's more of it, and it's perhaps a little more prominent. And then in the third verse, you get that punchy bit in the background. So it's just sort of layering things in. So I was just, with each part, it was, as it once was written and it was recorded, I would think, okay, well, so now what? What else could be added that would in fact actually add something to the song? As opposed to, hey, what's some more cool stuff I can do, that'll sound rad and, feed my ego. When it came, so I think I got all that worked out, and that was all cool. I was happy with that. And so then there's this instrumental. I thought, this has got to have a guitar solo. I mean, it's screaming for it. And what guitarist doesn't like to, play a guitar solo every now and again? The difficulty that I had with that was that I think I had not... The Enemy Within was about like the 7th or 8th song out of 10, I think. Yeah, maybe the 7th that I was working on, because it was very much like one song at a time kind of thing. And I'd worked really, really hard on the lead guitar parts for the previous song. And I'd written some stuff that I was super stoked about. Like, I really felt like I'd nailed it. But it had kind of taken a lot out of me creatively, is perhaps a way of thinking about it. And so when it came to The Enemy Within, I found that I was really struggling. I'd done a bunch of other stuff for it, and that was all great. At least I thought so. But as far as the solo was concerned, I was at a bit of a loss, and obviously the song was very different to any of the other songs on the record. And I realized that, and I realized I needed to approach it a bit differently. And I think early on I started to feel like I was overthinking it and trying too hard, and that's a very, very bad place to be if you're trying to be creative. Nothing sounds worse than a song that you tried to write. And so I think one night there was a moment where I was just kind of noodling, not thinking, and just played a few notes and went, oh, maybe it would be cool just to have some fun. Yeah, not that any of the rest had not been fun. It absolutely had been, but I found myself thinking, the song, for as serious as some of the lyrics might sound, and I've had people come back to me and go, man, this is some really dark stuff. It's really intense and confronting. I was like, oh, okay. I suppose it is. I just hadn't thought about it that way. But for all that, it's quite a fun song, I think. Somebody said that to me, actually, that it was dangerous but fun, or fun but dangerous. But at any rate, I decided, maybe I'll just have fun with it. Not going to think too hard, and I'm just going to play whatever feels good. And so that's exactly what I did. And so that's why it's... I would never describe myself as a shredder. That would be overstating things appallingly. But it's certainly, the guitar solo in The Enemy Within is definitely a horse of another colour as compared to the guitar solos that I've done, that I did on the other songs that have guitar solos. and I'm quite stoked with it. It's just fun. I listen to it and I think, I'm really glad I did that. It's, I don't think it sounds cheesy, but it doesn't sound like it's taking, I don't think I sound like I'm taking myself seriously. Which, if you wanted to, get really existential about it, is, it probably is quite appropriate for the song because, as I say, a lot of the lyrics of the song are kind of intense, I suppose. They're talking about, these different, a lot of it's about talking about different contradictions, in human nature and different failings and stuff. And so the guitar solo, in a way, provides kind of a counterbalance. In that it's purely instrumental rather than lyrical, but also because it's just kind of fun, as opposed to whatever the lyrical aspects of the song are. And that works for me, and I really like that kind of stuff. And I suppose in a way it kind of comes back to what I was probably very clumsily trying to get at earlier on in this video, the idea of just listening and adding different things, trying to find different parts that don't necessarily stand out awfully on their own, but that add something different. And not just different as in not the same notes, but like a different ingredient, Again, to go back to the appalling analogy that I used, I began with the steak, so maybe you've got the steak and maybe you add some potatoes, done in a nice way, not cooked the same kind of way as the steak, maybe done quite differently. And I'm not a chef, so I don't have all the words to use, and then maybe you have a salad, a nice fresh salad or something, and it goes with it, and it all makes sense, and it's part of the dish. But it's completely different from the steak, and you don't put it there to draw attention away from the steak, but you rather, some of the things you'll add to the dish are there to emphasize the steak, but others are there to provide, call it a counterbalance, just something a little bit different, not so different that it stands out, and you start thinking that it's actually a salad dish that happens to have a steak on it. But just something that allows you maybe to take a break from the steak, or just provides, whether it's a palate cleanser or whatever it is. And I think, excuse me, sorry, I get this dry cough every blimmin' summer. I haven't been able to work out yet if it's some kind of seasonal allergy, or if it comes from working, for many years in air-conditioned offices. I'm not sure. My apologies. Yes, but stuff like that is really important to me, or at least interesting to me, in the context of arranging a song. And again, it's important, I try really hard not to overthink it, but just to approach it in a very organic kind of way. And it's part of why I kind of build up the layers as I do. I don't, having recorded the bass elements of the song, I don't then go and go, right now I'm going to record a guitar solo. Because that should really, in my mind, that should be like the last thing that I do. Now, I'm not saying it's the last thing that everybody should do, but I think it's the way that works best for me. You know, so I'll layer in the other parts just little by little, and each time go, okay, now that I've got this, where does that leave me? Oh, well, I think I could add this other thing. Oh, okay, now I do this. And right, well, now where does that leave me? So that by the time I add the guitar solo, if it's a song that has one, it really is like the last bit of icing on the cake. So yeah, that's it. That's The Enemy Within. As I say, if you haven't listened to it, go have a listen to it. And even if you have listened to it, go back and have a listen again, and you know, see what you make of it, and in light of my comments, or my comments in light of it. Yeah, that's, I don't know. I didn't really have this planned out, but that's it. As an aside, I've just earlier today sent off the next track on the album to be mastered. So that will presumably come back at some point this week, hopefully, and that'll be out soon. And my plan is to, you know, do a couple of videos like along these sorts of lines for that song and all the other ones that come out. So yeah, have a great weekend, and well, I was going to say we'll see each other another week. That's not true. I won't see you, but perhaps you'll see me. So have a good weekend, and play some music. Cheers.